Most people think they can read others. A smile, a handshake, a few shared jokes, and they believe they know who stands before them. But a person's true character isn't what you see when the light is flattering, it's what comes through when the light fades. Jung once compared human encounters to chemical reactions. Each meeting releases something hidden. When two souls meet, masks collide, and if the spark is strong enough, both are changed. Every day, we pass people wrapped in masks. The polite voice on the phone, the neighbor waving at the gate, the colleague who praises in meetings and complains in private. The mask, or persona, keeps society polite, but it also hides what we can't yet face. Jung called it the compromise between who we are and who we need to be to survive. Watch closely and you'll see the tension between those two selves in everyone you meet, the forced smile, the glance that lingers too long, the sudden change in tone when they think nobody's judging. Character begins where the mask slips. You can see it in moments too small to fake. The waiter who's kind to customers but cruel to his coworkers. The friend who preaches humility until success finds them. A person's real nature surfaces not in their speeches, but in the seconds they forget they're being watched. Imagine a man standing at a mirror after a long day. He practiced charm all afternoon, made everyone laugh. Closed the deal. Now the room is silent, and the mask is gone. He stares at himself, not sure who's looking back. That gap, between performance and reality, is where Jung said the shadow lives. The shadow is everything we hide: envy, fear, desire, aggression. It's the part of us that learned, early, which feelings would get us punished and which would get us loved. We bury the rest. But the buried never die, they only whisper louder from below. The person who mocks others' success often hides the hunger to achieve. The one who shames others for weakness often hides their own. Watch how people react to what they claim to despise. There you'll see their shadow projected in plain sight. Jung warned that whatever we repress controls us from the dark. That's why the kindest faces can carry the deepest resentment, and why the most confident voices tremble when no one's around. To see someone's character, don't watch how they talk about themselves, watch how they talk about others. Our complaints are mirrors, not windows. Picture two friends sitting in a cafe. One of them has just received good news, a promotion, maybe, or love found after a long wait. The other smiles, but their eyes betray something sour and restless. In that moment, envy peeks out like smoke under a door. It's small, almost invisible, yet it says everything. The shadow hates to be ignored. When denied, it seeks attention through projection, gossip, or sudden moral outrage. The man who cannot face his own greed condemns the greed of others. The woman who denies her vanity becomes obsessed with exposing vanity around her. Jung called it the disowned self returning through the back door. Power, he said, is the surest solvent of the mask. Give anyone enough authority, and you'll watch their unconscious emerge. It's not that power corrupts, it reveals. The gentle man who becomes cruel once obeyed may have always been cruel, only powerless. The generous leader who remains humble under praise shows a different alignment. His mask and soul are not at war. Imagine a modest teacher suddenly promoted to principal. For years, he dreamed of changing the system, helping his colleagues, being fair. But now, as the keys jingle in his hand, something shifts. The small frustrations he used to endure become temptations to retaliate. He starts correcting people publicly, testing how far his voice carries. At first, it's subtle, later, it's habit. By the time he notices, the shadow has already moved into his office. This is why Jung saw the ego as a dangerous ruler. It believes it is the whole kingdom, unaware that its throne rests above caverns of unacknowledged instincts. Power widens those caverns. Those who haven't met their shadow will eventually serve it, but character is also revealed in weakness, especially in suffering. Jung said consciousness grows only through pain, and he meant it literally. The mind expands when it's forced to confront what it would rather avoid. There's a difference between the person who suffers and grows gentle, and the one who suffers and becomes bitter. Pain refines some and poisons others. Imagine someone who's lost everything: a business, a reputation, a partner. One version of that person searches for blame, another searches for meaning. The first projects pain outward and calls it justice. The second accepts that life humbles us to reveal our limits. How someone carries humiliation tells you more than how they celebrate victory. Watch how they treat others in their low moments. The person who, even in loss, can still offer understanding, that's character. The one who burns bridges to warm themselves for a night will burn again tomorrow. Integrity lives in such moments. It's quiet, almost invisible, until tested. When temptation comes, most people think the danger is the world's corruption. Jung knew better. The real danger is inner rationalization. No one will know, just this once, I deserve it. These are the voices of the ego negotiating with the shadow. Integrity is not about being flawless, it's about being aware of those whispers and choosing against them, again and again. There's a story Jung told of a man who stole from his friend, then confessed years later not from guilt, but from exhaustion. The secret had grown heavier than the sin itself. That's the thing about dishonesty, it splits the psyche. One part performs goodness, another drags the weight of deceit. Over time, that weight changes a person's posture, their tone, even their laughter. The lie becomes part of their body. In contrast, those who live transparently, who can admit fault, apologize, correct, seem lighter, as if their soul breathes easier. Their honesty isn't for moral applause, it's survival. They refuse to fracture themselves for convenience. The modern world rewards performance more than truth. Jung would have seen today's digital stage as a theater of personas, everyone broadcasting ideals, everyone terrified of invisibility. Yet character, real character, cannot be broadcast. It's the thing that remains when the camera turns off. You can tell who a person is by how they treat those who can offer them nothing. The ego wants witnesses, the soul does not. The one who helps quietly, without an audience, acts from center rather than display. Even in conversation, you can sense it. Some speak to connect, others to dominate. Jung said the ego craves certainty, but the self, the deeper center, craves wholeness. When you listen to someone who's met their shadow, their speech feels grounded. They don't rush to be right. They're more curious than defensive. They can hold tension without exploding into righteousness. Truth is another threshold. Everyone claims to love it, but few can bear it. Confronting truth about oneself is like looking into a cracked mirror. You see both your reflection and the fracture. Jung warned that awareness demands sacrifice. You must let illusions die. When you offer someone an uncomfortable truth, their first reaction will reveal their stage of development. The unexamined ego deflects. You're exaggerating, you don't understand me. The integrated one pauses. Maybe hurts, but listens. They ask questions instead of throwing stones. That pause is gold, it's where growth begins. Imagine two lovers arguing late at night. One raises their voice, the other grows silent. Each feels misunderstood, each defending a version of themselves they can't afford to lose. Then one says, quietly, maybe we're both scared of the same thing. For a second, truth enters. It hurts, but it softens the room. That moment is the seed of real understanding. Character lives in that willingness to face pain rather than disguise it. Love, Jung said, is the most dangerous mirror. We think it shows another person, but it first shows ourselves. In the beginning, we fall in love with our own projection, our ideal self reflected in the other's eyes. When that illusion fades, the work of love truly begins. The immature flee, the mature stay and learn to see. Picture a couple after the first year of infatuation has passed. The habits that once seemed charming now irritate. The fantasy version of the partner dissolves. Many call this disappointment, Jung would call it revelation. To continue loving then, with eyes open, is to love reality instead of dream. That's rare character. Those who can love past illusion have confronted their own shadow enough to tolerate imperfection. They no longer demand completion from another, they offer companionship in the shared project of becoming whole. Conflict tests that wholeness. You know someone's maturity not when you agree with them, but when you disagree. Most people enter conflict like soldiers, ready to defend, not understand. Jung saw conflict as the meeting of unconscious forces. Each person fights not just the other, but their own unacknowledged fear. Imagine a heated argument between two colleagues. One feels dismissed, the other feels accused. Voices rise. Pride locks them in. Then, somewhere inside, one of them remembers, I might be wrong. That tiny admission, barely audible, shifts everything. They begin to listen. The conflict doesn't vanish, it transforms. Character isn't about avoiding battles, it's about remembering your humanity in the middle of one. When tempers cool, something strange happens. Truth begins to whisper through the cracks left by pride. That's when you glimpse the deeper architecture of a person. Some people rush to rebuild the wall, others start clearing the rubble. Those who clear it, who can say, I went too far, have crossed an invisible threshold between unconscious reaction and conscious responsibility. Jung would call that a moment of individuation, the self becoming aware of itself. You can feel this awakening in small acts. A friend who once blamed the world begins to say, I keep meeting the same kind of trouble. Maybe it's not just them. That sentence, quiet and unremarkable, marks a revolution of the soul. For the first time, the shadow has been acknowledged, not condemned. From that day, the person will start seeing others more clearly too. Because once you stop lying to yourself, you lose interest in lies from anyone else. Still, self-awareness isn't comfortable. Jung said that to become conscious is to suffer the pain of separation, from illusion, from certainty, from innocence. The more clearly you see, the lonelier it gets. The crowd prefers masks, the truthful stand slightly apart. That distance is the cost of vision. Imagine someone at a party, surrounded by laughter that sounds rehearsed. They smile politely, but inside they feel the machinery of performance grinding around them. It isn't arrogance, it's awakening. They've begun to notice how easily people mistake enthusiasm for sincerity. Once you've seen behind that curtain, it's hard to unsee it. That person will either retreat into cynicism or learn compassion for the masks others still need. The second path is harder, but nobler. Compassion, when it's real, is never sentimental. It's forged from understanding how fragile the human structure is. Jung once wrote that every person carries a private myth, half remembered, half invented, about who they are and why life treated them so. If you can glimpse that myth behind someone's behavior, judgment fades. You stop asking, why are they like this? And start asking, what pain shaped this pattern? That's not weakness, it's perception sharpened by humility. Watch the way a person handles small power, over a waiter, a child, a stranger online. You'll learn more from those seconds than from all their speeches about kindness. The integrated individual uses power as stewardship, the fragmented one uses it as anesthesia. They need to dominate to quiet their inner chaos. You can see it in their eyes when they win an argument, they look relieved. Not fulfilled. Victory is their only form of silence. Now imagine a woman who manages a team. Every day she makes decisions that affect others. She's competent, respected, feared a little. One afternoon an intern makes a mistake that costs time and money. The room tenses, expecting fury. Instead, she takes a breath, asks what went wrong, and says quietly, "Let's fix it." That single moment carries the weight of 1,000 leadership seminars. Her authority is not performance, it's self-control born of having faced her own chaos. That's character made visible. When Jung spoke of the self, the totality of conscious and unconscious, he said it acts like a hidden compass guiding us toward wholeness. But most of us ignore its signals. We chase pleasure instead of meaning, applause instead of authenticity. We treat restlessness as ambition. And in doing so, we wander further from the center. The people who seem calm in a noisy world are usually those who've stopped running from that center. They've listened to the dreams, the symptoms, the quiet unease that others drown with distraction. Silence is the final test. Sit with someone long enough, without phones, without chatter, and you'll feel who they are. Some become restless, their eyes darting for escape. Others settle, breathing slows, the air thickens with presence. The first are still performing, the second have nothing left to prove. Jung said that when a person becomes whole, they radiate a kind of stillness. Not the stillness of exhaustion, but of integration. The inner factions have signed a truce. Picture two old friends sitting by a river near dusk. Words drift away. They've argued, reconciled, grown apart, grown together. Now they simply exist side by side. The river moves, the sky bruises into evening. One of them says, "We turned out all right, didn't we?" The other smiles. That's it, no philosophy, no grand conclusion. Just a quiet recognition that character isn't built in proclamations, but in decades of small choices, the times they stayed kind, told the truth, faced themselves. If you look carefully, you'll see that kind of quiet strength in ordinary people, the nurse finishing another night shift, the father repairing what's broken instead of complaining, the friend who listens even when tired. Jung would say they are living symbols of the self in action, the psyche's instinct toward balance made flesh, and yet, every day, we meet others still ruled by their unexamined shadow. They gossip because silence scares them. They manipulate because honesty feels like exposure. They demand loyalty while offering none. It's easy to despise them, harder to realize that we've all been them at times. The boundary between shadow and light isn't between people, it runs through each of us. That's why Jung never moralized about darkness. He said evil thrives on being ignored. To integrate it, you must look directly at it. Not justify it, not act it out, see it. Once seen, it loses its tyranny. A person who knows their own capacity for cruelty becomes gentler. The one who denies it remains dangerous, so, to truly read someone's character, watch how they handle their darkness. Do they pretend it doesn't exist? Do they joke about it to deflect? Or do they wrestle with it honestly, turning its energy toward creation? The artist who channels rage into beauty, the leader who transforms ambition into service, the lover who turns fear into tenderness, they're proof that the shadow can be harnessed rather than hidden, and this is where character and destiny intertwine. The choices we make when unseen carve the corridors we later call fate. Jung hinted that the unconscious arranges our lives to force confrontation with ourselves. That's why the same patterns repeat until we learn. The liar keeps meeting liars, the victim keeps finding tyrants, the proud keep tripping over humility. Life mirrors the psyche until we pay attention. Imagine a man who always falls for deceitful partners. After the third heartbreak, he begins to ask, "Why do I keep choosing this?" In that question, the wheel slows. He realizes it's not punishment, it's pattern. His unconscious has been staging the same play, hoping consciousness will finally take its seat in the audience. The moment he sees it, the stage lights dim, the pattern no longer needs to repeat. That's the moral alchemy Jung spent his life describing. By now you can sense the thread. To see someone's character, you must look where they'd rather not look. The way they treat power, loss, love, silence, truth, these are just mirrors reflecting the same interior landscape. And maybe the final test isn't to judge others by these measures, but to apply them inward, because each of us is both observer and subject in this experiment of the soul. The world constantly reveals us to ourselves, in traffic jams, in arguments, in small temptations, in moments of helpless awe. The question is whether we notice. To see someone's character, don't just watch them in victory, watch them in aftermath. The glow of achievement often hides the rot of ego. It's what happens the morning after that counts. Do they still treat the world with respect, or do they start to believe they're above its rules? Jung once warned that inflation, the swelling of the ego after success, is one of the most dangerous moments in psychic development. When a person forgets that their gifts come through them, not from them, they begin to lose touch with the deeper source of meaning. You'll recognize that inflation in how someone talks about their journey. If every sentence begins with I, and none with we, the balance is already off. True strength is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. Think of a mountain, solid, unspoken, unmoved by applause. That's the model of character Jung admired, not performative virtue, but authentic being. One night, an old philosopher and his student were walking home through a storm. The student kept complaining about the cold, about the wind, about the pointlessness of the walk. When they finally reached shelter, the philosopher said, "The weather is only an enemy to those who think it should be different." The boy didn't understand at first. Years later, he did. The storm outside is never the real storm. The battle is always within. How someone reacts to discomfort tells you how developed their inner world is. The weak curse the wind, the strong adjust their steps. Character is revealed in resistance. You can only test the structure of a bridge by adding weight to it. Similarly, you can only know a person when life presses against them. The ones who crumble never learn to integrate their contradictions. They relied on image, not substance. But the ones who bend and return stronger have discovered something priceless. That pain, when faced consciously, becomes fuel for transformation. That's why Jung often said that neurosis is not an illness, it's a call to growth. The anxious, the restless, the broken-hearted, they're being summoned by their unconscious to expand. But most people silence the call with distraction, addiction, endless noise. They don't realize that the discomfort is the beginning of individuation, the soul's rebellion against stagnation. To see someone's character, observe how they handle that call. Do they drown it, or do they listen? There's a kind of heroism in listening to your own darkness. The myths Jung studied, Gilgamesh, Odysseus, Christ, Buddha, all tell the same story: the descent into the underworld, the confrontation with the shadow, the return transformed. Modern life disguises the underworld as burnout, heartbreak, depression, midlife crisis, but the principle is unchanged. The descent isn't punishment, it's initiation. The people who come back from it with humility and depth are the ones whose character has been tempered by fire. And yet, the world rarely celebrates that kind of victory. It worships appearance instead, smiles without struggle, wisdom without wounds. So if you want to see someone's true essence, watch how they treat what the world can't see. Their time alone, their habits when unobserved, their choices when no one is keeping score. Jung said that integrity is born in solitude. Because when the crowd is gone, the ego loses its audience, and only the self remains. A man once told Jung that he felt tormented by the contradictions within him, his desire for peace and his craving for conflict, his compassion and his cruelty. Jung replied, "You are not one thing, you are a multiplicity. The goal is not to erase the tension, but to hold it until it transforms. That's the mark of a developed person, the capacity to hold paradox without collapsing into simplicity. Watch for that in others. Those who can tolerate complexity, who don't need the world to be black or white, usually have met their shadow and made peace with it. You can even hear it in someone's laughter. Shallow laughter runs away from pain. Deep laughter carries the echo of it. The latter is the sound of someone who has suffered and still chosen joy. It's the laugh of a person who knows that tragedy and beauty share a border. Jung would call that wholeness, the union of opposites within the psyche. Love, too, is a crucible for character. When Jung analyzed relationships, he said that the moment of projection, the instant we fall in love, is when we see not the other person, but the part of ourselves we've lost. We don't choose partners by logic, we're drawn to the energy that promises completion. The trouble is, that promise is temporary. Eventually, the illusion cracks, and we see the other person as they are. What happens next reveals everything. Do they resent the loss of the fantasy, or do they grow into the reality? Mature love begins where projection ends. To see someone's character in love, watch how they handle disillusionment. Do they run when perfection fades, or do they stay and rebuild on truth? Do they demand worship, or do they offer understanding? Love is the classroom where our shadows enroll. Those who learn compassion there, who forgive, who communicate, who respect boundaries, are those who've begun to integrate their own darkness. The same is true of failure. Jung wrote that failure is the psyche's way of recalibrating pride. Every collapse contains the seed of new consciousness. The people who use their failures to re-examine themselves become wiser, the ones who only assign blame stay small. Failure, handled correctly, becomes revelation. It strips away illusion and leaves the bare architecture of the soul, and yet, even self-awareness can become a trap. Some mistake introspection for transformation. They talk endlessly about trauma, archetypes, energy, but their lives remain unchanged. Jung warned that knowledge alone doesn't heal, it must descend from the head to the heart to the hands. True character is not what you know, it's what you embody. The unconscious doesn't care about your theories, it wants integration through action. So the test of character continues, quietly, every day. The world provides endless opportunities for reflection, the rude stranger, the delayed flight, the betrayed trust. Each one is an X-ray of the soul. How we meet them determines whether we evolve or repeat. Jung once said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And yet, it's the only way to peace. The person who can look at their contradictions without denial is no longer fragmented, they are whole. To live like that is to move differently through the world. You stop chasing validation because you've met the inner witness that doesn't need it. You stop trying to fix others because you've seen how hard it is to fix yourself. You stop fearing endings because you realize everything recycles through the psyche's eternal dance of death and rebirth. That quiet composure people mistake for wisdom is often just self-acceptance. Sometimes, you'll meet someone who radiates that calm without saying much. They listen more than they speak. Their eyes don't flinch at ugliness. You feel both seen and safe around them. That's not charisma, it's integration. You're sensing the peace of someone who has reconciled their opposites. Jung believed that meeting such a person can be transformative, because they mirror back the wholeness you've forgotten in yourself, and if you've never met someone like that, become one. Start by observing yourself with brutal honesty. Notice how you react when you're ignored, when you're praised, when you're tempted. Each reaction is data. Each pattern, a clue. You don't need to fix everything immediately, just see it. Awareness alone begins the process of healing. Jung often said, we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That's the real work, making the darkness conscious. Not suppressing it, not glorifying it, but integrating it into a fuller picture of what it means to be human. From there, every interaction becomes a mirror. The person who cuts you off in traffic, the friend who betrays you, the stranger who helps you, they're all teachers. They reveal which parts of you are still asleep, and that's why paying attention to others is not judgment, it's study. Every behavior you notice in them, you either contain or lack. The arrogant man shows you your buried pride, the patient woman shows you your unrealized calm. Character recognition becomes self-recognition. Jung's psychology always circles back to this: the outer world is a reflection of the inner one. By the end of a life, what we call character is really the visible residue of countless small integrations. Every time you choose honesty over comfort, empathy over ego, awareness over denial, you deposit another layer of integrity into the soul. Slowly, that sediment hardens into presence. People can feel it before they understand it. It's why some individuals command respect without demanding it. They've earned gravity. So to see someone's character, look where most people don't. Look at their silence, their eyes after losing, their behavior when no advantage is possible. Watch how they treat those who can't help them, and how they react when caught in error. Watch how they speak to the unseen world, their own conscience. All the rest is noise, because in the end, Jung's message was simple. Though not easy, wholeness is holiness stripped of illusion. Character is the shadow and the light, reconciled. The people who reach it are never perfect, they're just honest. They've stopped pretending to be pure and chosen to be real. And that, perhaps, is the rarest